Hello everybody and welcome to yet another guide, and this time we have Falxes, the one unit I have basically forgot existed. That's...
It's Batman.
It's bad, man. It feels bad, man. The unit that should honestly be interesting and should honestly have a role, but it just doesn't. And I do have a few theories why that is. I believe Falx himself has a few theories on that too. And of course, to discuss Falxes, who else can I bring than the Falxgod? Say hello, Falxgod.
What's up, dudes?
Yeah. Yeah, today we're gonna discuss Falxes and how to best play them. I don't know where to start, to be honest. Falxes are an interesting unit. They're an interesting unit. You know, their Falxes ignore a shield defense and a shield armor. But, Falxgod, can you please just explain the tragedy of Falxes? Because I don't think I have the heart for it.
Well, yeah, I think the hard truth at the moment is that even though, like you said, they ignore shield armor and shield defense, they're not really a match for the Romans in terms of stats. So you need some pretty good gameplay or some teammates to help you out to kill them all without losing too many units. But yeah.
I mean, that's true, and I think they should not just be a counter to Romans, but Greeks as well, because if you think about it, the majority of the Greek spear's defense should come from its shield. But as we had discussed before, now that the hamstring does not work on a phalanx, they don't really do much, do they?
Yeah, that's definitely true. So they have a really high base melee defense and not that much of shield defense. So the ignore shield ability that the Foxes have is basically not that useful. And he can just go into phalanx and run you over, and then you're dead basically. And since like the spears, like pikes, have like glue at the tip of your spears, you can't really disengage anyway. So
Yeah, that's true. Every spear attack just staggers a unit, so that causes that situation, kind of glues you into the combat. It is annoying, but if I think the role of the Foxes should be that, like a quick take out for like quick DPS unit against those spears, and should do fairly good against Roman infantry. I still think Roman infantry should win, but they should still cause a lot of damage, and obviously Foxes should win in the woods hands down. But let's talk about how to play Foxes. Let's say Foxes have been fixed and they have a niche in the game. So what are the things that people need to look out for when they're playing Foxes?
okay, so in general, Foxes are high risk, high reward units. Since you are melee and you have no shield, your base melee defense is pretty low and you don't get much from gear or consumables. You're basically really vulnerable to basically anything. So, yeah, that's the high risk part. And the high reward part, of course, is your insanely high damage output that you can have if you do it right. That is.
How?
So, for example, if you use Vercingetorix and use his fire on some Romans, for example, and you pin them down with hamstring in that fire, and then you can finish them off with Defiance, and you pretty much lose no unit of at all. But it needs some time to set it up. So, if you don't have the time, then just like fire kite them until you have the time to finish them off.
What about
But
skirmishers? I mean, you are
like,
pretty fast.
You are pretty fast, but I think if you talk, for example, Javelins, then the same applies that Cav players are currently like not really crying about, but a little bit of meme, you know, that they have the cal drops. So you can't really charge them, you can't really surprise them at all. So if you get close and they caltrop you, then you're basically dead because you can't get out, and they have an insanely high damage output, of course. and you have basically no missile block chance. I think it's 25% base on tier 10 Falxes, so non-existent. Archers, I don't really want to talk about archers, man. Just a 370k raw damage output on barrage during those 6 seconds, and combine that with no body armor and no what's the name?
Shield.
Missile block chance.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're basically dead if one barrage hits you. You can dodge it on if like the distance is pretty big, or you have the micro and you saw the barrage coming. But if you didn't see it coming, or it comes in a low arc, then you cannot dodge and you're dead instantly.
Yeah, same thing with javelins as well, but at least with javelins, I've got armor, I've got shield. Although you would still pretty much be dead if it's a direct barrage, but the fact that Falxes suffer from that even more, it really makes them a very underpowered unit. But still, I believe they do have potential to be good in the future when they're buffed, or when the stats are more shifted towards shield rather than their base melee defense. But that's something we're gonna see in the future. So why do you still play Falxes? Why is that?
Just amazing. They're so fun to play. I mean, on most units you have like 1 or a maximum 2 commanders that you can use, right? So for example, spears you can, well, you could use Kinani as well, but most people only use Leonidas or Miltiades. On swords you have Germanicus and Sulla, maybe some Caesar here and there, but mostly only in combination of javelins.
Yeah.
But Falxes have 3 commanders, Arminius, Boudicca, and Vercingetorix, and you can play them all with Falxes.
Can you tell us about the benefits of using each?
Oh yeah, that's pretty interesting actually. So Arminius is, in my opinion, I did some math the other day due to the commander restrictions that went live, and I believe it was 3.1.2 or 3.1.3, well, the last patch at least. And he's the best commander for low tier. That means for Falxes, the lowest tier is tier 5. So tier 5 to tier 8, Minus is probably the best commander that you can have. Because he scales pretty well over the tiers. And he has no really OP perk that you can unlock at tier 10. So that's pretty nice for him in lower tiers. He's pretty fast. He's actually, well, that's high tier again, but he's faster than Roman Cav or Greek Cav in the forest. So that's really interesting and fun. Oh yeah, man.
Okay, what about...
It has to be dense forest.
What about the other generals?
Boudicca is kind of interesting, maybe the hardest to explain. She has like a hybrid role between being like a shock cav, but melee infantry, and a support role where you try to buff your allies that most benefit from melee defense or ground effect modifiers. And then you have to combine that somehow, so it's really hard to actually pull it off. Especially if you have like no pre-man stack or like in a non-competitive environment, so random matches basically. I usually just go for the shock part of the build and only buff myself. Unless there's some spears around, because spears really benefit from rebellion.
That's true,
So,
that's true.
yeah.
And when I do play infantry, I quite like rebellion, because the melee defense added with vengeance, that basically just makes you a human combine harvester.
Yeah, but her biggest problem, in my opinion, is that she only starts to really get good at tier 9. So below that, I mean, tier 8 kind of works as well, but the Falxes at tier 10 for me, but you can play War Dogs, for example, or Swordsman as well, so there's that, but tier 8, tier 9 is really where you want to start playing Boudicca, and where she starts to get good. Like tier 5, tier 6, tier 7, it's just the charge is bad, because the charge impact you get 12%, but you can only unlock that at tier 10. So that's kind of annoying. And you get all the rebellion buffs or perks that are really good at tier 8 and tier 9. So anything below that is like, yeah, it's a decent buff, but it's nothing like that has that high of an impact in a match or in a game.
Mm-hmm. What
So
about
yeah, she's.
Vercingetorix though?
Oh, he's fun, man. He's fun. He's basically like I like to refer to him as like the meat grinder or like the barbarian. What's his name? The vengeance dude. Germanicus.
Germanicus.
Yeah, I hate him.
Yeah, he does. He does kind of feel that way. I can definitely see it. You know, with the defiance and iron discipline. I don't know. I feel like that combination is just so weird because the iron discipline increases your melee defense and makes you unbreakable, while defiance, makes you unkillable and increases your melee stats. I mean, how hasn't anybody realized how overpowered that is by design?
It kinda is. It kinda is. It would be really overpowered on like a Roman infantry unit, that's for sure. But on the
Yeah.
barbarians, they have lower stats overall, but they have like different focus of the stats. But it's not really that OP. And same for Boadicea applies for Vercingetorix as well. That below tier, let me take a look actually. Below tier 8 again, he's not that good. Just Defiance doesn't last that long below tier 8. I mean, it's 23 seconds at tier 7. So, yeah, it's like 10 basic attacks or like melee attacks, maybe 12. So, yeah, it's strong, but only again at tier 10 when you can unlock the armor penetration.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least tier 9 when you have like 40 seconds duration and only 50-second cooldown after the duration runs off. So 90 seconds cooldown actually.
I see.
Yeah. And of course you have the fire as well.
Of the bloody course you have the fire. Man, that fire, like it just has got so much tactical usage. Enemies camping, use fire. Enemies not camping, use fire. Everything is fire.
Oh yeah. And by the way, I'm sorry, some plane is passing over me, I believe. So
Oh,
you
that's
might hear
alright.
some.
That is alright. But so, I believe we have covered just about everything when it comes to Falxes. Do you think we have forgot anything? Do you have anything to add?
Maybe we can add that they have maybe the best unit ability in the game. That is hamstring,
Oh,
which we
yes,
talked about
yes,
earlier.
yes. Talk about that. So, what is hamstring? Why is it good?
Okay, so hamstring is a strike, like almost every unit in the game has nowadays. But what strike has that most like strikes don't have, or that hamstring has what most strikes don't have, is minus 80% movement speed for 8 seconds for every enemy unit that touches your unit or that is like in front of your unit. So it's like a in contact and cone effect basically. So that's really strong. Most strikes only have like, oh yeah, you're in contact with my unit, so I'm gonna hit you. But hamstring works a little bit different. It lasts for 8 seconds. It only has a 30 seconds cooldown. And well, it's a really good positioning tool. You can like hamstring Cav after they charged you. So at tier 6, you get hamstring on Falxes. And Berserkers, tier 8 premium units, the sword unit has hamstring as well. Those are the only units that actually have hamstring. So Falxes and those premium swords. If you get charged by Cav, just hamstring and then just follow them, hamstring them again. Because you have 3 units where you can use hamstring on, right? So a total of 24 seconds of uptime.
Yeah, so as Falxes, you're a pretty good counter to any cavalry then, correct?
Yes, basically anything that's really mobile gets counted heavily by hamstring. So that's nice. And a good disengage tool as well. So if you're engaged with someone and you see, oh, I have to get the F out of there,
Yeah.
there's some spears coming around the corner.
What about Miltiades spears?
I used to be amazing against spears in general, Miltiades in particular. Due to spears, when they went into Phalanx, they had like a 30% melee movement speed debuff, I believe, or something around that. And if you hamstrung them, they were basically standing there with zero movement speed at all. They
Good
kind of
point.
fixed it / changed that in 3.1.
Yeah.
So minus 80% is the maximum you can debuff someone now. So you have to
Oh,
watch out for them if they enter Phalanx. If they're not in Phalanx, you're fine. If they go Phalanx, then it's just gonna like walk you over and you're a roadkill basically.
yeah, yeah. And I feel like one of the biggest problem with the phalanx formation is that the spears or pikes turn into lightsabers. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like everything on that spear damages you. Its hurt box is insane, which is exactly what the fidget spinner people take advantage of. To keep
Oh
spinning
yeah.
around and touching people with the wooden part of the pike. I don't know, but that's the thing for another day. Speaking of another day, your Miltiades thing has actually reminded me that we have a future video coming up, an opinion piece about the tier list of commanders, so that people can get an idea on what is the competitive tier list. I was actually gonna do it this week and I completely forgot, so instead I'm gonna probably do it later today. But I believe we have covered everything that came to Falxes. Do you have anything else to add?
Well, I could talk on for hours, but
I
this
think
video
we
has come
have.
to an end.
I think yeah, we have. I think we have covered the basics on how to play, on what it counters and how it gets countered, and hopefully in the future it is gonna get better. I believe it's gonna be a very good counter against spears, but that remains to be seen. Well, I guess. Well, all that is left to say is don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you next time. Say goodbye, folks.
Goodbye, boys.
Goodbye.